How did you get involved in all this?
Well, it's very interesting. I had a UFO experience when I was a young child in my backyard in Miami, Florida, which started my research at the age of 7, really, looking in Britannica encyclopedias, looking for technology that matched what I saw, because the words didn't exist. Then much later on, I actually had an experience where I witnessed 2 gray aliens, and that really, after that incident happened, it really piqued my interest to find out what was out there. And I was really driven to start looking and searching for whatever reason. I don't know why it was into me so hard to start looking for life on other planets. And right away I went to worldwidetelescope.org and started downloading images directly from the NASA rover campaign, so Opportunity rover and Spirit rover. And within the first couple of minutes, I started seeing anomalies that were up there, and that's when I started.
And remarkable work you've been doing ever since, and you're rapidly, Billy, getting a lot of feedback from people who think you're doing just a marvelous job, and you need to do that. And
yes, absolutely. A lot of people are really giving us some fantastic feedback. We've produced some images now that have shown anomalies that really have people scratching their heads, including scientists, geologists, archaeologists, from all around the world, and we've made the news, international news now, many, many times, dozens of times over.
And Billy, let's talk about what's also happening in the UFO community, and then we'll get involved in some of the research here. But a lot of people in the UFO community are beginning to feel as if people are being attacked for their work, what they're doing. There seems to be some infighting going on. Are you picking that up?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of infighting going on. There's a lot of conquer and divide going on. And there's a lot of hacking going on as well on a lot of large accounts, which I just had to expose 2 days ago. Somebody has infiltrated some of these big sites, UFO sites, anomaly sites, and truth-seeking sites, and now they're pretending to be, they hack in, they take over the account, they pretend to be that person or that account, and they say they want to advertise on your page. So they'll contact you and they'll say, hey, you've got another big account like mine, a big following, I want to advertise. And you say, okay, great, how much are you going to charge me, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, okay, you got to go to this website so I can see how many iOS and users versus how many Android users you have, because that's based on how I'm going to spend my advertising dollars. That's what the scam says. And then what happens is when you go to that link, it steals all your information, your logins to all your sites, then they take over your site and take your site down. And it's been happening to dozens of big accounts, big sites like mine and many others over the last few months.
Jeez, that's frightening. Do we know who these people are?
Nobody knows, man. We've been trying to track them down. It's been very, very hard. I exposed the hack attempt on myself. That's how I found out about it. And I was smart enough, luckily, to recognize that something wasn't right by what the guy was telling me. When he gave me the link to go verify it, I went to a side computer, put a proxy IP in it, and tested it from an old computer to see if that link was a valid link or if it was a phishing link. And it turned out it was a phishing link. So I went back on my chat with the guy and said, hey, you're not Dilute the Power, you're somebody else. This is a hack attempt. And he right away got belligerent and said he'll hack all my stuff and so forth and so on. So I just made a video of the whole thing and exposed it on my website.
Good for you.
Yeah, so many people have been taken down by this group. I think it's an attempt to take down UFO sites, truth-seeking sites, and they've been very successful in doing it.
Well, you know what's funny, too, Billy, as Gaia that you've been on and I've been on through Beyond Belief for me and in your stuff, your hidden knowledge programs, the bigger you get with information, the more they want to take you down. Yes,
absolutely. And the thing that I'm finding is, unfortunately, it's a lot of people who claim to be in the truth-seeking, arena. So it's very strange because a lot of, I don't know if it's envy or jealousy or whatever the case may be, or who gets into some of these people's heads, but then they have this new term now called controlled opposition. Oh, you're getting so big because you're controlled opposition and people are helping you get this big. I'm like, no, I'm working almost 18 hours a day at this. My knuckles are bleeding. This is hard work here, as you know, and there's very little, back you get back out of it. It's just more of for the love of it than anything else. But it's been really rough over the last few months, man. It's been really a lot of haters and a lot of real weird infighting going on.
Now, tell us about UFA, the United Family of Anomaly Hunters.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal group, and what happened was I started looking into my own anomalies at first, and then I found some groups on Facebook, and I saw that other people were doing the same thing, and I was like, wow, this is great, I'm not by myself. And I befriended these people. One man in particular, Thomas Mikey Schroeder Jensen out of Denmark. He's the founder of Mars Moon Space TV. And I said to him, we and him started talking. We were like, we should get everybody together that are the top anomaly hunters in these groups and form an organization so that we can really have one umbrella and we can really push forward what our discoveries are and try to bring disclosure to the world. And he's like, that's a great idea. So we formed the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, or UFA for short. And from the time that we formed it, it was 14 groups all in total. We really have done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of pushing out a lot of valid, high-quality anomalies to the general public with trackable links back to the original source material, because we really want people to go look at these links for themselves. We want people to start doing the research for themselves, not just relying on hearsay or what we put out. We want to get more of the public involved in this because they paid for it. This is all public information.
Indeed, it has. Now, let's talk about some of the information that you've all discovered, anomalies. Where do you find them generally?
Generally, the majority of the anomalies have been discovered on Mars because Mars has had the most probes and satellites and rovers than any other planet in our solar system. So, in total, we've downloaded far more than 1 million images from official sources like NASA, the European Space Agency, the Russian Space Agency, and also the Indian Space Agency. And out of that 1 million, we've cataloged about 53,000 anomalies, things that are really out of place. The majority of those, I would say about 70% of those, are on the planet Mars. And these anomalies are actually objects that, we can't say exactly what they are. We just say that they don't look like they belong with the surrounding terrain where they're located. We see a lot of geometric structures, a lot of geometric patterns, objects that appear to be, in the most cases on Mars, a lot of dilapidated structures or structures that have been subject to some type of flooding or explosions. But they're definitely there, and a lot of statues, whether some broken, some still standing, but a lot of very, very weird things going on Mars that make you go, wow, there must have been a culture there at some point that was flourishing.
Well, indeed. Now, do you think any of these photographs got through by mistake, or what happened?
Well, it's very interesting how this is going down. Now, a lot of people say NASA lies. Why would you want to believe them? Well, yeah, NASA does lie. They cover up information about potential life on other planets, especially in our solar system. They want us to look far out of our solar system and not close inside. And what they do is when they release these images, because they have to, they try to fudge them. They try to, put these weird colors on them, this dark red, which is not really the true color of Mars. And they try to cover up a lot of the anomalies. But they always seem to leave a few that we can snap on or see if we really dig hard enough using some of our techniques. And I really feel that almost as if they're kind of using anomaly hunters like us as a form of soft disclosure to the general population, kind of like a drip-by-drip soft disclosure over time to get people familiarized with what may be out there or up there. That's the only thing that we can think of as to why they don't just block them all out. But I think it's it would be a humongous job to block all of the anomalies out because there's so many images.
Right. They'd need 10 full-time people there.
Oh, the more. They've already got a couple of hundred, plus automated software that turns things into rocks, and that still isn't enough.
Do you think, Billy, that they ever try to leak information just to give you information?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, I truly believe that happens because one time I went to a panorama called the Presidential Panorama, and I discovered some anomalies on that, and I actually uploaded that into a NASA Curiosity Facebook page. And one of the NASA techs liked it and gave me a wink face from the the icons. Yes. So that let me know right away that they know this stuff is there, and that was in a way kind of saying, yeah, we know you saw it, you know. So I think they are leaking some of these things out and pushing some of them. I think that people in general at NASA, on the front side of NASA, not the back side, not the secret space, but the front side, would love for this information to come out and would love for these things to be exposed. And if you have 200 or 300 people working on all of your images, maybe they just don't clean them as good as possible before they release some of them, and they leave a few things in there, a few cookie crumbs in there for us to find, you know.
What would you say, Billy, might be the most compelling photograph or source image that you folks have been able to find?
There's an incredible source image that was discovered by Martine Graney of this couple, these two people. They appear to be people. I can't say for sure that they're people, but they appear to be people because they've got the clearest face, eyes, nose, mouth, chest, body, arms, everything. They are literally fallen over and obviously deceased at that spot, almost as if kind of a Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley type of thing, where maybe it was an eruption or whatever happened. They fell right there in clutching each other, right there in that spot.
Like Mount Vesuvius, like Pompeii.
Like Mount Vesuvius, yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's the most compelling image because not only did Martine Graney do a phenomenal job of discovering these and cleaning it up enough to where you can really see it even better, but quite a few other researchers also went over the same image and got the same exact result. Many videos have been made, and it also made international news. This couple, unfortunately, appears to have died right there, and it's the most clearest evidence, in my personal opinion. And you can say structures. Sometimes nature does make 90-degree angles, but when you see these people, full body and all laid down there the way they are with their clothes and everything kind of garbed on them and kind of almost, just melted in a way, you say, wow, this is incredible. This is incredible evidence of former life on this planet. And maybe there is still some people there. You know, we don't know. But that one was the biggest, red flag for me to say, hey, we got to keep looking. There's a lot of stuff going on up here.
How old do you think they might have been in this situation?
That's a very good question. You know, we contacted a couple of metallurgists because a lot of the stuff that we find appears to be intact. Now, structures have been dilapidated and broken down, but there are some weird structures that kind of look like they're being supported by metal. Now, we can't say they're metal, of course, but they have the same reflectivity and the different light frequencies as metal and steel. Now, we contacted a couple of metallurgists and showed them, and they were telling us even in a reduced oxygen atmosphere, these metals or these types of potential metals would last maybe 100 to 120 years before they turn back to dust. Some of these are in pristine condition. So we're thinking, man, some of this life up there may not be multi-millions of years old. Some of this stuff could be within the last few hundred years, that something maybe happened recently and destroyed some of these people. Now, somebody saw a huge explosion go off on Mars, I think it was in the 1940s or something like that. And then scientists have now found xenon in the sands, which is evidence of nuclear fallout. So what's going on up there? We don't know, but we really would like to find out, so we're going to keep digging.
Now, tell me a little bit about your work for ancient civilizations on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's been just a passion of mine. I mean, ever since learning about, the fact that there's UFOs from the time I was a kid, when I started researching the technology in the encyclopedias, it took me to Egypt. So from there, I started really realizing that these megalithic structures possibly could be created or built or aided or architected by these whoever these people are that keep visiting us. So that really took me on a lifelong quest. And my first trip was out to the jungle in South America. I went down to the Yucatan Peninsula and went to the pyramids of Chichen Itza and researched out there. This is about 20 years ago. And just looking at what they call like the well, where they said that they would sacrifice the virgins to get the rain gods to bring back water. When you look at these wells, they don't look like wells. They look like silos, and right away I was like, these are silos. These aren't wells. And the more I researched and the more I dug into the mythology behind it, it always seemed to tie into technology and advanced technology. When you read some of the backstories and some of the ancient tablets and texts, it always brings you back to three people: Enki, Enlil, and Thoth. Mm-hmm. Those three are the main characters that kind of really everything falls back on. They've had many different names over the eons.
And Enki and Enlil, they were brothers, weren't they?
They were brothers, exactly. Enki and Enlil were brothers, and the son was Thoth. There was also another son of Enki named Amun-Ra or Marduk. They're really kind of those four are the total four, but those three really kind of highlight most of the stories. And a lot of the ancient tablets speak of those three. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth that he left behind, he wrote them in Egypt, but what actually was the land of Kim before Egypt even existed. And they were discovered in Teotihuacan, Mexico, by the Pyramid of the Sun. I mean, these things traveled all the way across to the Americas, and they were written over 36,000 years ago. And what I was able to tie into that date of 36,000 years was the fact that now a lot of researchers are coming out with the understanding that the Great Sphinx in Egypt, which was said to be built by Thoth, goes back 2 processional periods for Leo, taking it back to 36,000 years when it was possibly built. So it's all tying and coming together. So it's really an amazing story when you start looking into the structures, into these the megalithic buildings that were done potentially by these people, or maybe even at least architected by them, but then the work carried out by humans. But it's just an amazing, amazing thing.
You're familiar with the work of the late Zecharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki?
Absolutely. Yep, I sure am.
How close does your work echo, Billy, what his theories were about the Anunnaki coming here to mine gold, sprinkle in their atmosphere, and things like that?
Extremely close. And when I say extremely close, I mean he was pretty much almost dead on. One thing about Zecharia Sitchin, he needs to be revered as one of the greatest researchers in the history of this planet, in my personal opinion. A lot of people started coming out when he got a lot older, and I think a lot of them were paid propaganda agents.
They came at him. That's true.
Oh, they came at him pretty hard, man, and they tried to tear down everything this guy did. But now, all of a sudden, over the last 3 years, you can look at authors like Gerald Clark and many others that have come forward with their own research, independent of his, and it says virtually almost the same thing. Everybody has almost the same story. Not exactly, but the fundamental basis of the story is fundamentally the same. There are slight variations here and there, whether it was Nibiru, whether it was Sirius B, or whether it was Orion. These slight variations there, but the overall premise of coming here, definitely mining the planet for resources, predominantly gold, definitely the wars that took place between rivaling relatives of the Anunnaki and using human beings as cattle to fight these wars and claim land and so forth and resources from each other, and even the Atlantean, which I believe was an interplanetary war that really was the last reason for them to actually evacuate this planet in masses, with the war that stretched from Earth to the Moon to Mars and all the moons of Saturn and Jupiter as well. There was an interplanetary war that occurred in our solar system in ancient times.
Billy, we're going to come back in a moment and talk more about your work. Chris Impey, who's been on the show, Billy, said just a few days ago that he expects alien life to be found, but that it's going to be microbial. I want intelligent life. I want humanoids running all over the place. What are we going to find?
Yeah, he's right on point. I mean, that's what I was going to tell you tonight, that obviously they've come forward now and said that there's water. Well, we have been telling people that there's water on Mars in abundance for many years, and were scoffed and laughed at. Now NASA came out last year and not only admitted, but showing a mountain with water coming down the side on the press release that they did on TV. Now the next step is there's a rover going in 2020. That rover, in my opinion, is going to be the one that will discover the microbial life, because everything is on a time scale of disclosure, a very slow time scale, probably another 50 years before they actually admit that there's an ancient civilization up there, and then from there, who knows where it goes. But it's a very, very slow, drip by drip disclosure, and the reason why is because if they just come out and say, look, there's people up there, or there's remnants of people, or at least deceased bodies up there, then now what's going to happen is you've got to, number one, share that information with the world, the citizens of the world, and now you can't just go up there and do what you want. We're going to want to talk about it. We're going to want to vote on it. We're going to want to make sure things are being done humanely, that there's a prime directive in place in case we do run into somebody. All these different types of things. What happens if you come back after being in contact with one of them? Are you going to bring back a pathogen? There's a lot of questions that will arise. But if they don't tell or don't disclose it, and use a lot of private space industry to obtain this information and technology and survey the land up there, I call it property, then they can hide everything from the general public and give a very, very slow disclosure, which I think is what's going to happen.
Now, you talk about some discoveries on Venus as well. Explain those for us, Billy.
Yeah, Venus is amazing. A lot of people, including myself, were taught that Venus was this scalding hot place and molten lead rain and nothing could live there. But the imagery from the USGS.gov radar imaging seems to tell a much different story because these images, which I've provided an amazing assortment of anomalies to Gaia, which are going to be published very soon, including the show that I did with you, show not only just structures, but intact structures. This is where it becomes a little bit different in Mars, when you've got intact structures that appear to be sprawling cities on the surface of Venus. And when I saw that right away, I was like, wow, somebody has had to gone there before and seen something. So I started researching and come to find out that Russia sent quite a few missions to Venus. And I think it was Venera 14 that actually landed there and saw something that looked like a crab in front of the actual lander. And over the course of 3 days, it moved around until it was gone. So that was a huge, huge sighting there, and to me, evidence that there's something there, that there's life there on that planet. And if it's so hot there, how in the world did all of these missions from Russia descend and land on the planet's surface without the parachutes burning up and dissolving? I mean, that's some amazing material. If it's molten lead rain coming down on a parachute and it survives, maybe they should have built the Twin Towers out of that material. I don't know, but yeah. I'm just telling you, they're not giving us the full truth about the atmosphere of Venus.
Billy, any idea? I'll ask you how all of this started. I mean, I can't find a physicist to explain the so-called Big Bang theory that we could all understand.
Right. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Now, in my personal opinion, from the research that I've done, it appears to be that we're living in a holographic universe. And that would explain everything, because even the Big Bang can be explained by flicking a switch on. In other words, you turn your computer on, that's a Big Bang every time you turn your computer on. Every time you turn your cell phone, that's a Big Bang inside of your cell phone. And I really believe that we're living in not only a holographic universe, that we're living inside of a nested reality. And what I mean about that is we could be living in an ancestor civilization, and that ancestor civilization could be a holographic universe of another ancestor civilization, and so on. There could be many layers and levels to reality, and we really could actually be a child's science experiment. I mean, it could really be that simple. And what makes me say this is we have a video game out here now called The Sims, S-I-M-S. And in The Sims, there's actual people. You actually have families and communities and so forth, and you can play this video game, and you can make these people do certain things. But what science is telling us and what the programmers are saying, within the next 20 to 30 years, these Sims are going to become conscious. So wait a minute. Did we just create a simulation universe?
We might have.
Exactly. And at some point, are they going to start asking each other, hey, where did we come from, and start researching and trying to figure out? So you see, now when people hear the word holographic universe, they right away go, oh, wait a minute, are you saying we're not real? No, you're real. Everybody, we're real. Our feelings are real. Everything we perceive in this universe is holographic in nature, and we can't detect it because we're actually self-immersed inside of the actual hologram itself. There's a famous physicist by the name of Sylvester James Gates, Jr., who works he's a professor at the University of Maryland, and he is an expert in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. And in his research over the last 20, 30 years, he's now discovered and has released this information to his colleagues, and they now agree that the ether of the universe itself, the ether of the fluid that we're actually sitting in, has a programming code in it, and that programming code are called adinkras. And these adinkra codes are a specific type of code, the same exact code that runs search engines and browsers. So what does that tell you? Zeros and ones rule this universe. We literally are living in a simulation, a program, a very sophisticated program, but a program of some sort.
Billy, let's talk a little bit about life out beyond our solar system, beyond our galaxy, maybe other galaxies. How prevalent do you think life is? Intelligent life.
Yeah, intelligent. I think it's extremely, extremely prevalent. I think life persists everywhere. Life always seems to find a way. There was a famous scientist, I just can't recall his name at this particular second, but he took a flask and he cleaned it out, he sterilized it, and he took all the atmosphere out of it, made it into a vacuum. And within several days, life forms started forming in there. And I think this is the nature of the universe itself. When you look at the flower of life, which is actually part of the ether or the energy source of the what we can't see with our own eyes of the universe, I think that it consistently spits out life forms. I think that we're living in a gigantic software program that literally is always creating over and over again, creating all different types of life. So I believe there's life everywhere you look. Even if we can't detect it as life, but there's most likely life there. Now, intelligent life like us hominids, I truly, truly believe that bipedal and bilateral hominids are abundant in all universes and all galaxies. Within this universe.
What do you think of the claims of some former military folks who claim that they have been to Mars on missions?
It's extremely possible. I'll tell you why. There's a picture that I took down from the Opportunity rover imagery off of NASA's website in 2010, and it's called McMurdo Valley. And in this McMurdo Valley, this image was published on Gaia. After they looked at it and they couldn't believe it. They were blown away. You actually see what appears to be a military-type chopper, a swept-wing plane banking, and several tanks on the ground in this McMurdo Valley. And I mean, to me, it looks like a military installation. What in the world would that be? And you can see that the helicopter is above ground. You can track the shadow. You can track the shadow of the swept-wing plane that's banking to the right. And you can see the tanks and everything on the ground. It's just an amazing photo right from NASA.gov, and this tells me that there's most likely a military base there. Now, is it ours? I'm not sure, but I'm saying that some of these people who say that they have been there, it's quite possible that they have been. There's something called the MDF, the Mars Defense Force, and according to some of these whistleblowers, that's what they were a part of, and have started a breakaway civilization and have been protecting it on that planet.
That's exciting, and that's also bizarre at the same time, isn't it?
I know, yes, it is. It's totally bizarre and really, really strange, but I'll tell you, it lines up with the photography that we've looked at.
What do you think happens, Billy, once we send people there and they're wandering around Mars? Mm-hmm. Will they stumble across some of these artifacts that we see in some of these images? And I mean, will they freak out when they see these things?
No, because they're going to be prepped before they get there. Elon Musk is looking to take I think he moved it up to 1 million people now. He'd like to take totally to Mars. Initially it was 80,000, and it went to 500,000. I think it's up to 1 million. But he's going to start in around 2020 taking people to Mars on a one-way trip. That means they're not coming back. And
that is a one-way trip.
It's a one-way trip, not coming back.
Would you take a one-way?
Why they're not coming back?
Would you take a one-way trip?
I don't think I'd take a one-way trip. I think I'd like to go with Branson because I think Virgin Galactic, he'll go and come back. He's got a vehicle he's building that can go two-way. So the thing is, would I be allowed to come back?
Always buy those round-way trips.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that the people will be prepped before they get there. They'll know what's there, and I think that when they get there, they're going to set up shop as if they are one of the first people to be there. But I believe that there's already have been an infrastructure being built and taken care of, and other people working there, because I don't think that billionaires are going to leave everything behind on this comfortable planet to go live in a tin can and a steel suit for the rest of their life until they die. I just don't believe that.
You're talking about Elon Musk, one-way trip. Why one way? Why not try to develop a way to bring them back?
I don't think that it's part of the plan of the Brookings Report and the governments of the world, most likely NASA and the military-industrial complex. I believe that bringing people back and exposing to the world that there's an entire ancient civilization there and potentially maybe some life there, whether it's mammals or insects or whatever, maybe there's something there now, and that they've been lied to, I don't think that's going to be allowed to happen. I think that's why predominantly it's really a one-way trip, a pioneering one-way trip that they'll never return, because they don't want people here leaking what's really up there.
What do you think of Egypt and the fact that Cairo means Mars, Mars means Cairo? Mm-hmm. It's very strange, isn't it?
Oh, man, it's so amazing, the link up that you get between a lot of sites on Earth, Egypt particularly, especially Cairo. There's a map called the Piri Reis map that I'm sure you've heard of that before.
That's right.
And the Piri Reis map is an ancient map, It's been recopied many times, at least 15 to 20 times over many thousands of years. But the original map has been taken. They've really done a great job in copying almost exact, and it shows the ice. It shows Antarctica without the ice. But more importantly, when you look at this map from straight above, it does show the Earth as a globe. But it shows the Earth as a globe based on the way it's drawn from a position directly above Cairo. Which
Interesting.
Is amazing.
That's right. And as you mentioned, it was a map done pre-ice, so right. God knows how long ago that might have been.
Many. It could have been around that 36,000, time frame that we're talking about, with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth being written, and when he was commissioned to build the pyramids and the Sphinx. Egypt is really an amazing place. I went there in May of 2014, and I went to every major temple, every site. I had to get on 3 different planes while I was there to go around. It's a lot bigger than people actually think. Going to Karnak, Thebes, and of course Giza. I went everywhere, and the Temple of Dendera. And I went to this underground crypt at the Temple of Dendera, where they have these magnetic granite walls in there. And on these walls, they show this, what looks like a Tesla coil in the hieroglyphs. And this Tesla coil then has a cable coming out of it to a light bulb, and you see Egyptians holding this light bulb up. And you're going, wow, this is absolutely astounding. This is evidence of technology right here, crystal clear. There's no doubt about it. This is technology. And then I went to the Temple of Abydos, and about 20 meters above our heads in the ceiling, in a beam in the ceiling, the hieroglyphs are showing tanks, helicopters, planes, submarines. And the homegrown archaeologist that I hired to go on to these sites with me says that the groups that are here that have speakers, our tour guides are told to say that this is an accident and that these were overlaid by accident and they just happen to look like that. He says, let me tell you something, that's actually a lie. I'm going to give you what your money paid for. This stuff right here is real. We don't know how it got there. We don't know who made the hieroglyphs, but this is the way it's been for thousands of years, and it's never been touched.
Isn't it amazing what has been going on this planet for so many years? These mysteries or something. Now, why would NASA want to cover up this stuff? You would think that they would say, what a great discovery. We're investigating. We're going here. We're going there. Why cover it up?
There's a couple of reasons, actually. First of all, if you cover up the information, then you have complete control and power. Because once you release information, then the power is transferred to many people. But when you keep it covered up and hidden, now you have control of the information, which gives you power over everybody. If you remember, the last big war was the Gulf War, even though we've had many wars since then. But the Gulf War was really initiated, the first space war on this planet in recent times, meaning our control of space satellites allowed us to power drones and do laser-guided missiles and everything else from the control centers over here in the U.S., far away from the danger, because we control space. America literally controls space right now. And you have that power when you hide everything from people. When you start bringing forward a lot of this information, this ancient technology, all of a sudden we don't need fossil fuels. That whole industry collapsed. All of a sudden we don't need religious centers anymore. That multi-trillion-dollar industry collapses. So all these different little things that a lot of these people who are striving from this, what I call old money, they now go away. All their, everything they've done and built is going to go bye-bye. Pharmaceutical companies going bye-bye. All these things are going to die down when all this information comes to the top. And I think that's one of the main reasons why. Another reason why is because human beings, to me, and as far as how they see us, they see human beings as citizens of the world, as cattle, as a means to their end. They just want us to keep acting like robots in the Matrix. Get up, go to work, generate revenue, generate resources.
For them.
Do whatever we need to do for them.
Absolutely. All right, Billy, stay with us. We're going to come back in a moment.